Here are the top 10 most underrated games for the Sega Genesis, according to fans of the Genesis and Mega Drive. These are often referred to as hidden gems as well. Number 10 is Warsong. This is known as Landgrasser in Japan, and it spawned a series of turn-based battle games, most of which stayed in Japan. But being first doesn't mean this game is deficient in any way. It's basically a collection of turn-based battles. Before each one, you pick some commanders and assign each one some soldiers. These commanders gain experience from the battles, which makes them stronger and allows them to learn new spells. There's obviously a lot of strategy involved here, and that's what people love about it. Of course, these types of games didn't sell well in the West at the time, so that's probably why most Genesis players never came across Warsong. Number 9 is Kid Chameleon. At first glance, this may be the most Mario-like thing Sega has ever created. You have a run button and a jump button, and there's blocks that you hit that have things inside. But what makes it different is that you get these suits that turn you into other things, which give you certain abilities. The trick to advancing through the game is to pick up the right suits for the right situations. It's an all-around, very competent platformer that is screaming with that 1990s attitude from the time, where people wore sunglasses and stuff like that. The visuals are crisp and detailed in most stages. They are almost candy-like in some cases. That's how I describe them. I don't know if that makes sense. I surmise Kid Chameleon got overlooked due to all the platforming attention that was given to the Sonic series. Even today, I think Sonic's shadow hangs over this game. Pun intended. In case you are wondering, here's how I came up with this list. I combed through various message boards, Reddit posts, YouTube comment sections, finding mentions of underrated or hidden gem games for the Genesis or Mega Drive. And after 6 hours, I ended up finding 1,600 of those mentions. In this ranked list I'm showing you today, I'm showing you what games got mentioned the most out of those 1,600. And yes, I realize that some people will say that these games are very well known due to all the various retro channels and message boards talking about them over the years, but just know that not everybody follows everything as closely, and new curious people enter the world of Genesis all the time. Number 8 is Alicia Dragoon. The evil Baldor is about to be awakened from his cocoon. The last time he was awake, he killed your father, so you need to stop him. Luckily, you are very skilled with magic, having a heat-seeking lightning that can be powered up as you find items. You also have 4 different monsters that fight alongside you. Each one has a different way of attacking. At any time, you can switch between those 4, and each one can be powered up as well, and they can also die. There were a lot of games that looked like this during the Genesis's run, including Mystic Defender and the Valis games, so Alicia Dragoon may have got lost in the shuffle, but it looks good, it sounds good, and it plays good. Number 7 is Crusader of Sinti. This action RPG resembles another action RPG on the Super Nintendo. I can't remember what that one was called. It was Zell something, but in Crusader, monsters are returning to the kingdom, and you need to find out why by unlocking the different areas of the world. Early on, you lose your ability to speak to humans, but you gain the ability to talk to plants and animals. There is a map screen that resembles another Super Nintendo game. It was Super Mar or something. Like Alicia Dragoon, there are small companions you can equip, but this time you can do 2 at a time. There are 16 in all that you have to find, and each one gives you an ability. You can just tell by looking at it that this is a wonderful game to play, but having been released late in the Genesis lifespan in seemingly low quantities and without any major marketing, it just never got noticed. But apparently some have noticed it because it's one of the most expensive games to buy for the Genesis. Number 6 is Dynamite Headdy. It may be hard to wrap your mind around what is going on due to all the chaos on the screen, but that's because it's created by Treasure, the same people who made Gunstar Heroes. They knew how to work the Genesis and how to just fill the screen with all kinds of stuff going on. Your main attack is throwing your head, and you can also use it to grab onto things and pull yourself up. You can also find other heads that give you additional abilities. The head stuff is a weird concept, but it fits well in a game that's already filled with weirdness. What goes on in these stages is just indescribable. You never know what's coming next, and that's part of the charm. But its weirdness may have scared people away from it, and perhaps this title gets conflated with another head-centered game, Decap Attack. But regardless, Dynamite Headdy is an unforgettable experience. Number 5 is Vectreman. Put simply, there is no other game that looks like this one on the Genesis, except maybe Vectreman 2. It is just gorgeous and pushes the Genesis to its limits in terms of lighting and animation. The levels are also very well designed, and you have weapons that are satisfying to use, since you can shoot in many different directions. Along the way, you can find power-ups that allow you to morph into forms that give you certain abilities, which switch up the action quite a bit. Now, I will say I was a little surprised to see Vectreman on this list because it seems like a lot of people have talked about it, and it had a sequel, but it was released in 1995 when a bunch of other things were going on, like the Sega Saturn coming out, so this game initially got missed by a lot of people. Number 4 is Shadowrun. This one is based on a tabletop RPG franchise that takes place in a dystopian future where cybernetics have become commonplace and a computer called the Matrix has come online. It's an open world game where you earn money by doing missions called Shadowruns. You start off doing mundane ones, but you work your way up to more important ones. The ultimate goal is to take down the people who killed your brother. Players like that there are different character classes to choose from, and each one can grow in different ways using a skill tree. And people like that there are random events that happen with each playthrough. And they also enjoy the change of pace that happens when you go inside the Matrix, which you have to do throughout the game. All in all, Shadowrun is a complex game with a lot of text, something that no doubt scared some people away, but it can be very rewarding for those who commit themselves to it. Number 3 is Haunting, starring Poltergeist. Electronic Arts published a lot of off-the-wall games on the Genesis, and many of them, like this one, didn't get as much attention as they deserved. You play as a dead teenager, and you seek revenge upon a family that was linked to your death. You do that by haunting them until they leave their house and move into another one. After you scare them out of 4 houses, you win the game. People like how different the concept around this game is, and they also like the mechanics behind the concept. The rooms of the houses are incredibly detailed, and just about every object can be interacted with in a manner that frightens the family members. The animations are unlike any game that's out there, and they are hilarious to watch. There's also strategy in choosing the order and the timing of the various hauntings within each room. Before we get to number 1 and 2, I'm going to quickly show some honorable mentions. These are games that just barely missed being in this top 10, and these are in no particular order. Blades of Vengeance. Herzog Zwei. Subterranea. McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure. Mutant League Football. Starflight. And finally, Biohazard Battle. Number 2 is Ranger X. This is one of those games that takes a long time to get used to. The controls are unique. Pressing A shoots left and C shoots right. There is a scooter that you can stand on top of or merge into. There are indicators all over the edges of the screen, and when you're underground, you have to find light sources to stay charged. Suffice to say, it takes a while before you start becoming competent at playing the game, and I think that aspect has driven some players away. Regardless, this is a technically proficient game. Your character is extremely detailed. All the various appendages you have are well animated. The backgrounds are fantastically designed. In the end, this game is doing a lot of things differently than your typical robot shooter, and I recommend Genesis owners put some effort into playing it. Number 1 is General Chaos. Electronic Arts strikes again with another off-the-wall game. General Chaos and General Havoc had a falling out with each other during childhood, and now they fight against each other in a series of real-time battles. Prior to battle, you choose from a package of soldiers, and the other general chooses a package as well. You then have to use a cursor to move your soldiers around the battlefield, and you have to keep in mind that each soldier's effective range differs depending on what weapon they have. It isn't easy to win a battle, but the fun is trying to figure out the best strategy to do so. There's also enjoyment in how silly the whole game is. You have people turning into skeletons and people pulling out guns in the middle of fist fights. This is pretty much a parody of real-time strategy games. To top it off, if you have a multi-tap, 4 players can play at the same time. So I hope you enjoyed this list. I have many other top 10 lists on this channel. Check out some of the links in the description or on the screen in front of you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.